everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lion City Wrestling Cult Podcast. And today, let's talk wrestling with Endboss GREGORY, one third of Inglorious, and also the co-founder of Grapplemax, Greg Ho.
Hi, everyone.
How are you today?
I'm super good. So great to be here.
Yeah, I'm
and
glad
congrats
to be
on your
here.
podcast.
Oh,
This
thank
is
you.
incredible. Episode 2?
2.
Oh,
yes.
wow. I'm so honored to be number 2. It's great.
And I'm really glad that you're here. And we're actually recording here in Grapplemax studio.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, you have a podcast, equipment here to do podcast recording and all that. And it's something that Grapplemax Studio offers, right?
Yep.
It's one of the many things, actually. Like Grapplemax is this, it's not just pro wrestling shows that you come to watch, but it's actually a business itself in Singapore. So maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, we try to be a business, right? So maybe some context for everyone. So again, this is Grapplemax Studios. We moved in here just about a year ago. So we're actually on our first year anniversary of moving in. So this is a cool time to be here for, I guess, a check-in on how we're doing.
Yeah.
So this is supposed to be a place where everything tied to pro wrestling happens here in Singapore. So everything from, of course, the wrestling workshops, the training, to the shows, the monthly shows, to podcast recordings, to video creation, stuff like that. So everything is supposed to be here, which is why we've kind of called the place the home of pro wrestling in Southeast Asia. And we're really sincere about making that the place where everything happens here.
Yeah, and speaking of, you said that's 1 year of moving in, right?
Yeah.
So how does it feel like looking back?
Still alive. It's crazy, right? Because before this, I'm not sure people know, but we've always been a constantly evolving company. This is actually the 4th place we've moved to. The first 3 were always shared spaces, right? So we shared with a circuit training gym, we shared with a Muay Thai gym, we shared with a gymnastics gym, and we thought, this is the right time, or last year was the right time to make that huge leap and raise some funding and move to a dedicated place where we could do something like this. But with that big move came a big jump in our costs, right? Because we moved from a very heavily profit share model to a completely upfront, a traditional rental approach.
Right.
So we easily quadrupled, if not like quintupled, 5x'd our costs. And somehow, we thought, okay, if we screw this up, we're going to die in like 6 months. But it's been 1 year since, and we're it's nice to know we're still around, and actually we're growing in some interesting ways which we hadn't seen or hadn't expected to grow in before.
Right. I mean, it's been like you just had like one of your biggest shows with Dual Destinies. It was a 2-night event.
Yeah.
And then you joined, the Asia Pacific Federation of Wrestling with NJPW, Stardom, and a few other Asian promotions. So you guys are going up and up.
Yeah, we try to be. Actually, it's funny because Dual Destinies feels like such a long time ago.
It does.
And then I forget that actually it's just 2 months, right? And I think it's so crazy because, again, this place has really let us do a lot more than anyone could have done before with pro wrestling, right? Because we talk about, Dual Destinies was end of June, right? And then after 2.5 weeks, we were running NWE's first open house here, which was a show in itself. And then now, I'm about to rush off after this to a radio interview to promote our Singapore Night Fest headline act event in August. So it's so easy to sort of lose track of what's the last thing we did, right? And then now we also have the baby gender review that's apparently going crazy on Reddit. So it's just it's really great to see the many different ways that we're able to really inject pro wrestling, apart from just a traditional pro wrestling show.
It's good busy.
It's good busy.
Yeah, you have the regular pro wrestling that you see on TV, online, and then you have the private wrestling events like the gender reveal party. That's something actually you've been doing since you started, right? Actually,
no, not gender reveal party since we started. That's a very new thing, but private events definitely something which we've been trying to do. So we can talk about this first if you like. This is one of the crazy things we do.
Exactly.
So I'm not sure
if
you've been on Reddit in the last 24 hours, you may have seen that this is two of our major wrestlers have been wrestling in Hot Shot, our champ in pink, and Sean from Aussie in blue. So we actually ran a gender reveal party. So we were engaged by YC and his wife, who came to us to say, hey, can we run a gender reveal party with Grapplemax? And we thought it's very meaningful to do that because, I mean, YC's been with us for years and years, right? And why not make that happen here?
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun, and I think it's really cool to see like the response to such an event. In fact, it's the first gender review second that I've attended, and so this is cool to me too. And I think to see the response from both the people who came down and also the people online who were exposed to this video, it was very nice to see the response. I guess Reddit is Reddit, right? So I sort of saw both the extreme bad, which was expected, right? So lame. Waste money. What's the gender review?
Typical Reddit,
right? But then what was personally surprising was also the positive people who were defending this, going, hey, look, it's a private event. People were having fun. I'm sorry you weren't there, but it was great. Like, why must you hate on this,
exactly.
right? Someone else went, oh, this guy is obviously a wrestler, and this is where he has made his home. Why shouldn't he do his gender review here? And I thought it was just very, very heartening to see like people were stepping up to speak up for this, and for people just stepping up for people doing what they love, right? Which I think is really the core of what Grapplemax is trying to do for a long time, which is don't be shy, don't be scared to go out of your comfort zone and try pro wrestling or try something crazy with pro wrestling. And I think this is where this particular gender review, the response to it was really heartening to see.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you were talking about the comments, like, actually one of the comments I saw on that Reddit post, it actually asked about the names of the wrestlers. So actually people were saying, like, oh, that's Sean and that's, Hot Shot. And I think that's also another entryway into what Grapplemax is. So I think you're also getting more new fans, I guess, through that.
I think so.
That's what media outlet news is, like people get to know new things, and I think that's a cool way to attract.
It's pretty cool, isn't it, right? I think we were picked up by Malay Mail, right? So thank you, our friends up in Malaysia. That was cool. And again, it's something which we didn't really plan to do, right? And this is one of our most, I guess, organically viral things that have come up. So I think it's very cool to see this. And I think what's cool is this is not our first private event, right? So we've been doing this ever since 2016. So even, I think before we met, even in our very first gym in Victory Centre in Aljunied, way back 2016, one of our first events was actually it's a birthday party or a bachelor party or stag night. Maybe we ran both. So we had a stag night come in, and they came in they brought their own wrestling costumes. And the request to us was, can we make the guy getting married the star of the show? Can he be like the Steve Austin and not the Rock? And can he just like beat up all of us? So we choreographed this whole sequence for them. It was like a crazy 2.5 hours. Can you imagine these like 6 or 7 guys with completely no wrestling background, but very game, right? So then myself and Dennis, we were very much like, okay, we're here as choreographers / safety ICs / video crew, because we were so lean back then. It was just 2 of us, and I think Ramos was there too. And we put together this, this like 30-second single take, like Ong Bak style fight, right? Or like a Wing Chun style fight.
Right.
So I think the last move was like a Stone Cold Stunner or something.
Oh, wow.
Sidewalk slam, turn around, double clothesline, boom, Stone Cold Stunner, And then I think for the Stag Night one, they then showed that video at the wedding.
Okay.
Right, and the wife and the family, they loved it. Like, oh, it's so crazy, right? How can you go out there and do this? It's awesome. And so I think that's the first point where Dennis and I realized that this can be done, right? Like, it's not only one path where you have to become a wrestler, right? There are many other paths you can try to create. And it's something which we've been obsessed with trying to do ever since 2016.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a wrestling fan. I only know that, it's pro wrestling on TV, in matches and stuff like that. But I kind of heard about private wrestling events, like birthday parties and all that. But I didn't think that would actually be a demand, like, even in Singapore. Like, I thought it was a US thing. But apparently here in Singapore, like, people actually ask for it.
I think what's missing is awareness, right? I think deep inside, so we always do this running joke in the team where we always tell ourselves that our theory, and tell us if we're wrong, is that 80% of Singaporean men have had some kind of exposure to professional wrestling, right? And probably 60% like or love pro wrestling. And we've been asking everyone we meet who comes through the door. We've been asking Grab drivers. We've been asking the security guards. And so far, we've been proven right. And everyone shares, and again, you can ask your audience too, right? Everyone shares this experience of, wow, those with siblings, I used to suplex my brother onto the bed lah. I did a frog splash from the dressing table, right? How many bed struts have you broken doing a splash, right? And like everyone that we've spoken to goes, hey, also, yeah, my brother, my sister kena power driver, and we realized there's something there. There is this connective tissue where everyone has this nostalgia for something to do with pro wrestling. And it's so unique to this sport that you and I love. And then how do we then draw from that and then give it back to the community in as many ways as possible?
Right.
To then grow the market from there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like when you were talking about the Grab drivers, I also had a few experiences when I come here for shows actually. Like they say like, what's in Ubi? And I'm like, oh, it's a wrestling show. Oh, really? Oh, uncle, yeah, last time. Then he started going on a tangent, like watching wrestling coffee shop. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. Like,
that's incredible.
Everyone has some story, related to wrestling back in the day or whatever.
Yeah. And it's such a great icebreaker, right?
It is.
And again, it's given people so much to talk about. People always ask you, oh, what do you do on the weekend, right? Oh, I went to watch a movie. I went to see a live band in the bar. Oh, I went for a wrestling show. Huh? Wrestling show? Got wrestling show? You mean like the MMA? No. Right? How many of you out there have had the same conversation, right? And I think we really want to make that conversation more out there.
Right.
It's not some weird niche that's like a little secret nobody knows about, right? It's actually out there. And everyone goes, wrestling? It's not about what is wrestling. It is always, here have a. Which is very different.
Yes.
Right? So the problem that we're trying to solve, that we should all be trying to solve, is how do we let these people know about it? Not educate, hey, what is pro wrestling? That one is such a passé question. Everyone knows what pro wrestling is, right? And Dwayne Johnson is back. Everyone is back. Wrestling is at its massive prime again, no pun intended, in the US. So then how do we then draw on that and help people know that this is here?
Yeah, and I think that also speaks about the community in Grapplemax. Personally for me, because when I started watching Grapplemax shows again, I get to know you guys after shows, and I think that's what makes me keep coming back. So even though like people come for watching wrestling, but it's not just that as well. Like you would also want to know what they're up to next. Like you guys have workshops and all that.
Yep.
Like, and then the now with the private wrestling thing, that's like something for everyone. So it's not just about like, oh, if I want to be a pro wrestler, then I will go and watch. Like it's just something that I want to learn about what pro wrestling is through Grapplemax.
You're right. Yep. Should I jump in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's a good point. I think that again, before we came about. And I think this applies to every traditional wrestling promotion in Singapore or elsewhere, right? It's always been, what's the product, right? The product is, let's get a big enough crew to run some shows, right? A show every 2 or 3 months, and let's do a big show for a few hundred people and try and sell out the house. We have always felt that Singapore is a very difficult market to try and do this on a consistent, sustainable basis that can also grow.
Yeah.
Right? So we were always focusing on, okay, how can we make this wrestling, again, the connective tissue, give value back to people in different ways, right? Besides just, buy a ticket, here's a show.
Yeah.
Here a ticket, here's a show, right?
Yeah.
How do we reposition such that we have different customers who want different things, right? Some people just want to pay a ticket to watch a show. Great, right? We can do that. We do wrestling shows, come watch the shows, come watch some fantastic wrestling. That's great. But what about beyond that, right? Who are we serving? So we always see it as, okay, there's the audience, and then there are the wrestlers, right? But why can't it be both, right?
Yeah.
Why can't the audience be wrestlers and wrestlers be audience, right? And why even draw this separating, this barrier between the two? So this year, since we moved here, we're so focused on, first of all, for the audience, how do we increase that connection with the audience, right? And it's much more than, like you said, right? It's much more than just come and watch the show. It is, okay, how do we develop that relationship with us to feel like you're one of us? When you come into this studio, you're welcoming you into our home. And how do we get you to stay? So we're talking about things like we launched our fan membership earlier this year. And from there, you have things like, exclusive Telegram groups, exclusive information, promotions, invitations to like tomorrow's members party, for example, right?
Yeah.
And then I think this is where we discovered people like you, right, who really want to be a bigger part of the community. And the goal now is how do we then find more and more people in the audience or in the future audience who can also be like you, right? And maybe in future become, future podcasters, right? Future content creators, right? Not everybody in wrestling has to be a pro wrestler, right? And you can still contribute in crazy, awesome, impactful ways, like what we're doing right now, right? And this is the goal, right? How do we grow that audience and give them something back, much more than just, here's a wrestling show. Like that view to me is so dated.
Right.
But then the other part, which is a lot of fun, is also for the wrestlers, right? And for the wrestlers, and this is a big part of what I want to talk about today, which is quite fun, which is we've been thinking for the last 4 to 5 months, what does it mean to be a pro wrestler, right? And how does our whole NWE developmental brand sit in this whole relationship? And so it always goes back to, I have a lot of friends around the region, right? Promoters and bookers. And a very common lament we always have is after your wrestler has made his debut, after the first 4 or 5 matches, what's next?
Right.
What's after that? And typically the answer is what? Maybe
win a title.
Yeah, correct, exactly. Win a title, chase a championship, sell more merchandise, become a superstar.
Yeah.
Cool, right? If you are in AEW, WWE, New Japan, that's viable, right? That's a career, right? Here, we are probably about 5 to 10 years away from that level of success because the market's not mature enough yet.
Okay.
So what's next, right? And for us, we had the issue too, right? Once you debut, once you've made your graduation match, what happens next?
Right.
Wait for next booking, right? Are you available to do it? Sure, I can make it on this particular date. Nah, you're on the card, right? How do we create a system where there's a constant level of engagement for the wrestlers as well? So we took the same approach that we looked at with the audience. And we said, okay, we know what the audience wants. What do the wrestlers want? And it's much more, or we think so, this is a gamble we're gambling on. It's much more than just, I want to win a title.
Okay.
Plus, we only have 2, so we cannot give so many titles anyway, right?
Yeah.
I want to have big storylines. I want to be a star.
Yeah.
But if you go back to our fundamental values, right, it's always been community, right? It's always been opportunity. It's always been evolution, right? Always looking to the next step for Grapplemax. And so we realized that no, it cannot be about that. It has to be about things like ownership. How do we make them feel like they are valued by Grapplemax, by NWE? And this is where you talk about trust. What they want is they want trust from the promotion in them. Don't be afraid to go out there and represent the brand, right? You guys are fantastic spokespeople, right? Fantastic initiative.
Yeah.
So very simple examples, right? So again, the team has been growing very steadily, as in the operational team.
Right.
When we first started, it was myself, Dennis, Pete, Ramos, a very small team. Now we've got 12. In the last couple of months, people like Ban Sechak, right? Evil Ban Sechak. But he is helping us grow our community building initiatives. Lavin, right? Coming off his feud with Simon. So Ban and Lavin both stepped up to join the community management team. So they are responsible for doing things like managing the fan membership program. Thinking of programming, how do we make exciting monthly events? WrestleMania Watch Party was done entirely by them, for example. Right?
Okay.
How do we then make them feel like they are contributing back? Not just as a wrestler, but as a member of the wrestling community, Grapplemax community. So it's ownership, it's trust. Right? Beyond that, right, the most core, of course, is social equity, right? I want to be that interesting person, right? I go out there for networking sessions, I go into meetings. What do you do on the weekend? Oh, I'm actually a pro wrestler. What? Right? It's such a cool calling card to have.
Yeah.
Right? So on a personal level, even myself, right? Like I used to work in Changi Airport Group. And I was there for quite a long time, about 5 years.
Okay.
And I left them in more than 10 years ago now. But even now, if you were to ask the people there, like, do you remember this Greg from Changi Airport? Right? They won't talk about my time managing the terminals or helping to start up Jewel Changi Airport. They go, Greg, oh, the wrestling guy, right? The wrestling guy, right? And it's something which sticks, right? It goes beyond what you're doing in your career, and it sort of sticks on your profile forever if you let it happen. And that, even to me, that was super valuable, even now, right? The people I meet, the meetings I go to, it's always there, like, oh, you're part of this this movement. So it's a lot of that. And the last part is really development, right? People want to get better as people. Not just, I want to become the next openweight champion, but how can I become better, more confident, right? A better stage persona, right? How do I raise my hand and have the whole room go, wow, look at you, right? And that is a very important skill to have. So now we're trying to tie back, okay, how do we create this constant incentive to tell you, hey, if you make this amount of training attendance, if you make this amount of fitness level, if you make this amount of contributions, this is why you have a higher spot on the card versus somebody else, right? It's a way of qualifying and quantifying their contributions and giving it back in that equity, right? The more you contribute, the more we can say, yeah, actually you have earned your spot, compared to what it was before, which is always very like, booker decide lah.
Right?
The fans decide, if I'm over, I'm over.
Exactly.
Right? And I think this is something we're trying now, which is how do we then use NWE as a way to segregate the teams. If you can commit the time, if you can train a high frequency, and you can keep your fitness at the highest level, you are the best of the best, wrestle on the main roster.
Right.
If you can't, you need to still wrestle, right? Because that's a key part of your experience, right? But people here are busy, right? All our clientele here are either students, busy professionals, working adults, right? No one here is like, wow, I'm here to become a full-time wrestling superstar.
Right.
So we don't create a system that forces them to do that. We just say, okay, look, we work around your lifestyle. If you're too busy, it's fine. You can wrestle on NWE, where the pressure is lower, and we will tell the audience, we're very upfront with the audience, and we're telling you now, NWE is going to be a developmental brand, right? It is where the matches have very low stakes, very low storyline. You are watching us like we were in 2017. These are people who are here to just practice, get their reps in, but it'll still be top quality wrestling.
Right, yeah.
But if they can put the time in, then okay, here's an angle for you. Here's a creative for you. Here's an awesome storyline for you. Here's a title shot for you. That's the main roster. And then this routine will continue.
Right. I think it's a really good system. Like the fact that you are actually being transparent about it, publicly. Like, and it also helps us see that you're not only just giving these opportunities, like just, okay, you get booked kind of thing, but also empowering them to like, okay, if I want to get booked on a particular spot on the card, then I have to, like, in a way, I have to contribute this way.
Yep, exactly.
So it's really on them as well. It's like the power is not just on you, the booker.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how this model you came up with, is it like it's something that you came up with specifically, right? Because when you started out.
Yeah. It's something which we've always known we wanted to move towards. And I think everything we've done is building towards this, right? Because before we had our own place, we couldn't do a lot of shows. And it's all connected, right? Because then the more shows you have, the more opportunities you have to distribute. The more you can experiment. Okay, like here you have like at least 12 slots a year to wrestle. Right, highest frequency of most promotions around here, right? So when you have 12 slots, you can think about, okay, how do I then distribute this? This one's for training. This one's for major angle. This one's for your experience, right? I think this is what gives us that flexibility to do so.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very. It sounds doable. It sounds possible. And like as a fan, you're like, how do these wrestlers work? How does the wrestling business work? And then especially like, how does it work in Singapore context? Because we are very different from like the US and all that. Like the wrestling career is like, it's kind of straightforward. It's like if you want to do it, you go in full time and that's it. But for Singapore, it's like you said, like there's people from different walks of life, different professions, and probably not many that do it full time.
No, very few.
Exactly. Right. So I think it's really interesting to hear how it's actually doable in Singapore. You just got to tweak it a little bit, right?
We think so. Right. I think the difference is that unlike say a traditional promotion, in Singapore I think it's very hard for the promotion to be king. right? Because people can always walk away, right? Singaporeans are so spoiled for choice, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's attention span is like 30 seconds,
Yeah.
right? I try wrestling for 2 months, I'm bored. I don't get anything back. I bounce, right? Ask any promotion, right? They will
Yeah.
always have people who try for a short time and bounce. And two things, right? If they bounce or they churn, right? That's my startup sort of brain talking. If they churn, right? The reason must be very clear, right? Some people really just don't like wrestling, and that's fine, right? But then how do you find ways to then bring them back? And we think that the answer is much more than, here's a title shot. Here's a main event angle for you.
Right.
It's so meaningless.
Yeah.
To us, to
At
us.
the end of the day,
No
yeah.
offense to other. To us, it's meaningless, right? To us, it is. How do you take whatever you get from here and apply it to your life outside? How do you make your actual career, your real job, your real personality more interesting because you perform here,
Yeah.
and not just the end goal is I am now the champion,
Right.
right? Where do you go beyond that?
Yeah. I think also like people nowadays we are more realists. Also like pro wrestling is very fantasy like.
Yeah.
You kind of see like, oh yeah, you become champion and then what?
Yeah.
Champion in wrestling life. But what about in real life?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is it's a very interesting approach to pro wrestling in Singapore. And I think it really speaks to, the people here. Like you see like, oh, it's actually it can be a profession too if you want to go that way. Yeah, like it works.
It could be. I think probably too soon to say it's a profession. I think it's very challenging
Right.
for it to be called a profession. I think at this point in time, it is still very much it's a lifestyle choice. It's like it's always like going to your regular boxing gym. It's like going to your MMA gym, except ours involves wrestling training, and also part of the training involves getting in front of 100 people and wearing your wrestling tights and doing a performance.
Right.
But I think to take the step from that into it's now a career, speaking as someone who is doing it full time now, and it's a challenge, right? Especially if you see it as just, again, if you're trying to make money as just a performing pro wrestler, that's super difficult.
Right.
Because what's the demand for that, right? Not just
Yeah.
wrestling, but any type of entertainer in Singapore.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
How many
true.
successful homegrown entertainers do we have who haven't gone overseas to grow that market?
Yeah.
Right? It's so difficult. But to make money from running a pro wrestling business and being part of that team, that's very different than just saying I'm a pro wrestler who's professional.
Right.
Ironically, right? And to me, that's where it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so like when you first started out and then now in 2024, like what are some of the changes that you've seen?
Like in the industry, or like for us, or
Maybe in terms of like maybe in general or anything that sticks out to you right now?
I think the biggest change we've seen, at least, is the audience or the mainstream response to professional wrestling. I think if you look at the socials from when we first started,
Right.
2016, 2015, 2017, it was always a lot of time spent on like, so fake, right? It's always been this constant tension between wrestlers and fans. So
Right.
fake lah. Where's Kurt Tay, right? How many times you hear about Kurt Tay, right?
Yeah.
See, even here, he just came out in that conversation. See lah, what have I done, right? But that's the point, right? And if you look at any comment thread, it was like 95% disparaging. Where's Kurt Tay? Local one no good, right? That was 2016.
Exactly.
If you look at it now, those voices are still there. You will always have confirmed one Kurt Tay mention somewhere, right? But you have so many more voices who are stepping up to say, but this is quite cool. I know about this. I have a friend who is doing this. My brother does this. My cousin does this. I think it's quite cool. Why don't you all try and learn about this? And this is something which is, I've been talking about this for years and years, right? Where Grapplemax is a long-term project.
Yeah.
Right? We are trying to create a culture of acceptance where people are not judgmental of any kind of niche, not just pro wrestling, right? Don't see a thing which is weird or unusual to you and just go, stupid lah, fake lah, waste time lah, waste money, right? That's such a common take
Right.
in today's society, right? And we're seeing more and more people step up and go, no, you should embrace it, right? Life is so bloody short, right? Do things which make your life interesting, right? And then don't lament when you are not doing such things.
Right.
And I think that is what's changed, right? Which I find super interesting. And this is why I think we see more and more people stepping up to join us in different ways. Again, right, as performers, team members, DJs, ring crew, because they're going, actually, yeah, this is not weird. This is not something which people would judge me for. And if they do judge me, right, screw them. Because many more people now would step up to defend, including myself, right? And I think this is what's changing.
I see.
Right? Seeing you doing this podcast now is part of that movement. Right? Would you have thought about this 5 years ago?
Yeah, I was gonna say like I used to be like, oh, I do pro wrestling blog, that kind of thing. But now it's like, I do pro wrestling blog. And people will be like, pro wrestling? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things that I saw, like in relation to you, was, when you came down for the Night Festival press conference. Right?
Yes.
And then the PR team came around to, hey, I've never seen you before. Can we please have you on our press list? Exactly. And just like that, we now have a pro wrestling podcast on, the local media list for a PR firm in Singapore, which again you would never have seen before.
No, yeah, exactly.
Right.
There's no pro wrestling news outlet kind of thing.
And why shouldn't there be? Right?
Exactly.
I think that's why it's so cool that we have all these movements coming up now.
Yeah.
And not just our effort, right? But across the board, right? Everyone is working so hard to just like, look, this is not weird. Or maybe it is weird, and that's okay. Right? It's okay to be weird. Right?
It's weird and it's
Someone
okay.
commented, actually it's quite a funny comment on Reddit. Yeah, no, I was too long on Reddit yesterday going through all the gender reveal comments. I'm not proud to admit that. But I saw one comment which I thought was pretty funny. It went from offensive to actually that was quite cool. So the guy said about the gender reveal, oh man, this looks so stupid. But actually I realized that it's okay to be stupid in your life once in a while.
Yeah, I think I saw that too.
Like something I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But I thought, wow, actually that is the message, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I think there's no need to be so serious about these things, right? In the end, look, we're a bunch of guys and girls who put on performances of exaggerated fights, wearing colorful costumes for people who want to believe this is real for 2 hours. Yeah. It's very silly, and we know it's silly, right? And if you defend that as being very serious and very, very unsilly, I think you're taking it too seriously, right? It is a fun project. It's a fun thing to do that is no weirder than many other things in life you could pursue.
Yeah, and these days life gets stressful. You want a little bit of escapism. Yeah, this is the best place to do it. Watch wrestling.
I think it's the best place, but I'm probably quite biased. You're probably quite biased too, but yeah, I think so. I think it's a good place to escape from a lot of things. And it's true, really. I think we have people who come to us and they say like, oh, my home life is quite challenging now. I got parents, as in people who have told us, parents are not so well. It's very stressful at home, and the one time I feel I can escape even for a short time is that 2 hours here every week doing training, doing the workshops. And I think those are the reasons why we keep doing this, right?
Yeah.
Where this and nothing about that was, wow, I'm here to become the champion. No, it is just, this is a community where I feel at home. And my life is difficult. This is where I remind myself that actually it's okay.
Yeah.
Right? And this could be any sport. It could be anything from pro wrestling to acting to improv comedy. It doesn't matter, right? We are just another community with wrestling as that connecting tissue, right? But I'm happy that we're able to serve that function, which I didn't see before in 2016. Back then it was like, let's try everything, right? Let's just be the best wrestling school, best promotion, wow, largest shows, blah, 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 blah. And it's really not that, at least in Singapore, right? It's really not that. In Singapore, it is just people here are so stressed, so distracted, so worried about life and getting through finances, and stock market yesterday crashed, right? Or everything is going funky.
Yeah.
But this place stays alive because it's a place where they can come to and just talk nonsense about pro wrestling and wrestle their friends like they were doing back when they were kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very powerful thing that we are able to give back to the community now.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm attracted to Grapplemax. Like, coming here, like, it's because of the community here. Like, I don't know you guys personally, like, before I come to the shows, but I stick around and I come to the house parties, just socialize with everyone. Everyone's so cool, so chill, and everyone's also willing to help. Like the open house that we did when you invited me to be the host for the Q&A. Sean Rick actually approached, like, do you want tips? Do you want advice?
Yeah.
You know, as a host, like, he's done that. He's, as a pro at that. So I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, of course, I want tips. Yeah, so it's a very interesting network of people that you have here.
Yeah. I think we're very lucky now where the people we've attracted are, again, very successful outside. Right,
Yeah.
and they use this to amplify or to augment, I guess, what they're doing outside. Right, Sean Rick's a great example. Right, Sean Rick has been emceeing with us and way back also wrestling with us.
Yeah.
Right, for those who check our old retro footage, and he's someone who's gone on to from strength to strength. Right now, he's DJing on Kiss 92. He's doing a professional emceeing across the board. And not just that, many people here have taken this and used it elsewhere, right? Ramos has been with us since day zero, in fact, right? And he's now a super, professional level freelance content creator, photographer, videographer, right?
Yeah.
And again, all this, and I wouldn't say it's because of us, right? But we gave them a way to then express what they do in particular ways. Right. Sarah, fantastic video production background, right? And she is not just using that in her character work, but also helping us behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Right? So how many people here have gone on to do well outside using this as one of their calling cards?
Yeah.
I love talking about our favorite Joseph, right? Joseph, MC, wrestler, right? Do people know out there he's also a poet, right? A professional level poet, right? A PhD holder, right? And this fella is incredibly smart, right? Why is he doing pro wrestling, right? And this is why I'm saying this is it's really not about. It's not about this being a bizarre niche, right? It's people here come from all kinds of backgrounds, right? Joseph went for his poetry festival profile pic. What's his wrestling picture? How crazy is that, right? Can you imagine imagine his CV, right? It's like PhD holder, poetry writer, poet, professional wrestler, right? Here's me in my one piece wrestling gear, right? And it's like, what? How unique is this guy?
Yeah.
And this is where it's fun,
Yeah.
right? This is where I think it's so different at this point in time versus 2016.
Right. Basically, what the change that you've seen is that people see like, oh, pro wrestling is weird, but it's okay. So what's the next goal that you hope that, to achieve for Grapplemax?
Man, so many goals. No, but it's a good question. It's something which has been keeping me up for many months because everyone goes, wow, you've done it. This is this studio is it. But it's really not, right? I always joke to the team that if you told me that this is it, like if the future is just let's keep running bigger and bigger shows, right? Let's keep bringing in more guests and let's make it status quo. I'd rather quit, right? Because to me, it's so boring, right? It's like we've always built our brand on evolution.
Yeah.
And it's not just a calling card. It really is. If you look at how we have evolved over the last 8 years, this year, in fact, right? We've always been changing, right? How do we create a new space that lets us do new things? Both in terms of community building and in terms of the events that we run. So I think what's next, we definitely do want to start looking at, can we afford to do a different type of space, right? Must it always be in this particular studio?
Okay.
Right. This place is great. It does create some barriers. We do know that it's sometimes difficult for people to get to sometimes. It could be maybe a bit larger. Ceiling definitely could be a bit higher, as everyone knows. But it serves a function for where we are now, which is to show that this concept works, right? As a proof of concept. What next is we want to, first of all, test this NWE approach.
Okay.
So we're about to announce our event calendar for 2025. So we've already planned all the dates from now till next December.
Okay.
And this will then tie back to then everyone in the team also knows what dates to bookmark in their calendar and also what are the qualification periods to then be on those shows. So I think it's testing this approach to help the team plan their lives around pro wrestling. Then at the same time, separately, we are actively chasing more and more of these private events. So corporate events, private training, white collar wrestling. We want to try and grow other fields besides just the wrestling shows. We have this place for another 2 years at least on the tendency. So plenty of time for us to try and test different ways to activate this space.
Nice.
Yeah, and with one eye, of course, on, okay, what happens after that, right? Stay here, new space, second space, who knows, right? And all that requires funding, right? So we're always trying to see where can we raise more funding. But before funding, it always goes back to, okay, where are your growth markers, right? Where are you showing the growth? And we are seeing some growth, but of course, we would like to see that go exponentially higher.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's a work in progress. And recruitment, right? That one is still always going to be very slow. How do we find ways to get more and more kids and more working adults coming through on a monthly basis? Yeah.
Okay. So Grapplemax is right now is like basically the main brand. And then earlier this year, you announced that there's like 2 sub-brands, so to speak. So there's the NWE that you mentioned earlier, New Wave Evolution. And then there's the White Collar Pro Wrestling, WC Pro, basically. So WC Pro is focusing more on like, I guess the working professionals who want to be pro wrestler, but with a shorter commitment or something like that?
Yeah,
maybe you can.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. So White Collar Pro is working professionals who are too busy to commit to a wrestling training schedule, which are a lot of people in Singapore.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty much.
And so white collar wrestling, as the name suggests, we completely ripped off white collar boxing. I'm not shy to say that, right? Because we looked at that model, and okay, people who go for white collar boxing, are you familiar with white collar boxing?
I mean, I know that it's basically working professionals that just box each other for a night.
Yeah, that's a nice summary of it. Yeah, so they train for a fixed duration of time, right? 2 to 3 months. I might be wrong about the duration, but 2 to 3 months. And the idea is to then have like one bout in a marquee event. Right, where they can be a boxer for a night. Right. And so we looked at that. We said, okay, what do they want out of this? Right. They want to prove something to themselves that they can go through this journey. Right. They want to prove something to their friends, their colleagues, their family, to say, hey, I can be a boxer for one night.
Yeah.
Right. They want that rush. A lot of that sounds like what wrestling provides to people.
Yeah.
Right. And then you think about, okay, why people go for MMA fights versus wrestling fights, right? My theory, and I'm probably wrong on this, is that the common thread is they want that adrenaline rush, right? You want to see that adrenaline rush of live combat.
Yeah.
The difference about pro wrestling fans is they don't want to have the actual risk of concussion, right?
Yeah.
Accidental blood, right? Limbs being broken, right? Ankles being twisted, right?
Yeah.
They want to have that fair reassurance that it's a show, but I want to believe in this 2 hours. And that's a very different market now, right? I want that rush of proving to my friends and family that I can become this fighter for one night. But I don't want them to worry that something's going to go terribly wrong.
Okay.
But I still want that rush.
Yeah.
Right. And we think there's something here where we can do that for a pro wrestling related audience.
Right.
Which is, can we train you on a weekly basis for 2 months to do, say, a 2-minute, 3-minute exhibition with one of the experienced coaches or experienced guys here. Right. So no worry about some epic crazy match, right? People just want to have that short-term experience, right? And then from there, you clip out your best 30 seconds, put it on TikTok.
Yeah.
That's what they want, right? And they want to before that, go and tell all their friends and family and colleagues, hey, come and see it, I'm doing my first ever wrestling match. And that's all they want to do, right? And I'm saying this not just like pulling it out of thin air, but because people who have been coming to us are, interestingly, from this particular market, which is like 35 to 45-year-olds.
Okay.
Who go, hey, I kind of have like this on my bucket list. I kind of want to try, but I don't want to do any kind of like dangerous risk where I might get injured and worry my wife or my husband. Can we do something about that here?
So they've actually approached you about
this. Right. and so I guess this is a request also, right? So to whoever's listening to this, right? If you do fit into this demographic where you want to sort of experience what we do, but life is just so freaking busy, right? But you want to try. We think we have this product for you, where you can try it, fixed duration, try it for 2 months, and the deliverable at the end is a 2-minute, 3-minute mini match where we will make you look like $1 million. Like a graduation match, but it's even smaller than that. And that's the goal, right? If you know someone who fits this profile, or if you fit this profile, right? Come talk to us. Because we want to pilot this, we want to launch this. And we think there is something here we can try and start as a separate arm to the main NWE Grapplemax project.
Right. I mean, you're already doing the private wrestling events, but this is something different where the person requesting is involved in the match itself.
It's the wrestler in the match.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. It goes back to like a couple of years ago, we worked with Susie Wong from the pole dancing. She's one of the pole dancing pioneers in Singapore.
Right.
And she was doing an anniversary for her pole dancing school, 10th anniversary. And we sort of came together and said, hey, can we choreograph, can she invade a wrestling match and be part of that show? So basically, we set up our wrestling mats outside her auditorium where the anniversary was happening. And so after the show, I think during the intermission, she came out, then there was a wrestling match. And then Dave, being the heel, had a chair. And then Susie came out, hey, what y'all doing? Why you take the chair? You're so naughty. Then, you come, you show me, you beat me up. Then she came in, ripped off her shirt to show her cool wrestling gear, and gave Dave a Hurricanrana.
Oh my god.
Then turned around, jumped on Val, gave Val a bulldog, turned around, did a split and pose for everyone.
Wow.
And that was like the socials.
Damn.
And that took maybe and she, to be fair, she's really, really fit, super athletic. So we trained her in about 3 or 4 sessions. But that's the product, right? And that's good enough, right? There was no need to do a 1, 2, 3 cover, no need for some elaborate, amazing chain wrestling sequence. Just throw in 1 or 2 spots, but do it under supervision where we help to choreograph around your physical capabilities or limitations and make you look amazing for that very short sequence. And that's all you need, right? It's wrestling for the TikTok generation. It's all you need.
Right, and there's actually people asking for this.
That's the crazy part, right? So, if it's just me talking about this, then it's crazy Greg doing his crazy wrestling ideas again. But the fact is, again, back to your initial question about what has changed, right? People are much more keen to come out now and say, hey, can we try something else?
Yeah.
Can we try a different product, a non-wrestling product?
Right.
I've got people asking me, can we start a separate course just for ring crew? Or a separate course for managers?
So it's different aspects of pro wrestling.
Yeah. Because we have people in the team, for example, Dom's a theatre actor by training, right? Yeah. Can we then run acting classes? People who want to be Singapore's next Paul Heyman, right? Maybe take 1 or 2 bumps a year, right? Just in case, right? Or maybe Mr. Young can take a bump off a spear, right? So the kind of stuff can happen, right? But the point here is, can we then create something else for that market, right? So no need to worry about the wrestling. But you want to be at ringside. I mean, you experienced that, right? Open house, the house party, you were there at ringside. Dave Royalty put someone's leg to interfere in the match. And that was fun too.
Yeah, that was.
And so, can we train people to be part of the shows in that way as well?
Right, yeah. I mean, I didn't really think about having, I guess, classes for the non-wrestling aspects of the business itself. It is... I mean, we think about it, but we never really wanted to do you actually have classes for that? Or is that a given,
So a good thing about the Grapplemax Startup 101, right, is that if there's enough demand for it, if your audience is hearing this, right, let us know. We can make it happen. So again, if you want to be involved in pro wrestling in any way whatsoever, right? You want to be involved as a referee, you want to train to be a manager, you want to be Singapore's next or first Paul Heyman, right? We want to create stuff like that. We have the space for it. We have the manpower for it. We just need to know if you guys out there want to do it, and then we'll make it. Because we have this home of pro wrestling studio for the next 2 years. Let's freaking do something about this place.
Yeah.
And this is the request to everyone out there.
And how can they reach you?
Easiest would be go to Grapplemax on Instagram, right? So at Grapplemax, one word, on Instagram, send us a DM. they can probably DM me directly on Instagram as well. So that's Greg, GREG _ GP Max. And we tend to reply very quickly, right? Just give us a cool idea and we'll make it happen.
Nice. I mean, hearing all the things that you've been involved in the last like 8 years or so, like you guys are game for anything, really.
Yeah, I think so. But we also do run regular wrestling shows before we forget. Right? So people always forget. Like I forget too. Like we have 2 big shows coming up end of the year, which we have not mentioned at all on this podcast. So.
Okay, yeah.
8th anniversary is coming up.
Yes.
Somehow we are on 8 years. So I think maybe the last part can be going back to like what's happening for us for the wrestling fans out there,
Yeah,
right?
let's go.
So again, we have 3 more events coming up this year. 4. See lah, I can't even keep up. So Night Fest is happening in August.
Right.
That one, please check out SG Night Fest. They have all the details
Yes.
there. We're doing this crazy narrative-based 1960s versus 2000s picture. King Kong Bundy versus Logan Paul, Seth Rollins kind of match, right? And we're trying to get the ring gear to match that too.
Nice.
So that's happening 4 nights, 6 performances this August in Cathay Green. So check out Night Fest for all the details. After that, September, we're doing another NWE open house. For us, the last one did really, really well. We want to do another one now, but an even bigger focus on recruitment for us. Then going into the last quarter of the year, we're looking at October, Road to 8th Anniversary Amplify. And then November is 8th Anniversary for our major events. Next year, what we hope to do is at least 8 major shows, of which there will be 4 Big 4 events, each of which will have a Road to show.
Okay.
So for example, and I'm not saying it, this is not confirmed yet, if we had, say, a Causeway Jam 4, or is it 5, right? There would be a Road to Causeway Jam before that. So every event that the fans want to follow will be in these 2 show couplets. Road to, followed by the major one. So very, very tight storytelling that doesn't require you to go and do like 8 years of research into our lore, right? So we're not the MCU, right? We focus very heavily on just know what to know going in and then support these 2 shows and then repeat. So that's for next year.
So that's the new format,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
of the NWE. thing
Super
that you
exciting.
have.
Yeah, correct, yeah. And then we might inject some NWE matches into the regular shows as well.
Oh, on the regular shows
we
as
might
well?
do that. So
Okay.
it'll sort of be like a first half, second half. So we're trying some weird things this year.
Okay.
I would really love to hear from the audience if this makes sense to you guys too, because we know it can be a bit jarring. But I think this is coming from feedback we've heard from the audience, which is some people really love how Grapplemax used to be, which is much less storytelling. It's just focused on competitiveness of pro wrestling.
Okay.
And we're hoping that the NWE brand can sort of be a bit of a callback to that, where we focus a lot less on like, our typically out there crazy angles. And it's just, again, these are exhibition matches, but featuring the guys that you already know and love.
So people are still requesting for that kind of
Yeah,
wrestling shows.
interesting, right?
Yeah.
Some people, I think there's a very strong, I think 8 years in, we're at a point where there is some nostalgia for
Okay.
like old school Grapplemax,
Yeah.
right? For the times in Juchet or the times in Gymcraft. And we don't want to alienate that. We don't want to go so far down the path of every single match at some crazy angle that we lose that sense of, going back to the part about ownership, right? I think a lot of our fans like the fact that they are playing a small part in helping us build something.
Okay.
And I think giving them that behind the scenes of, we're still a training school. We're still doing development matches, makes them feel like, I want to see this guy develop over time, which I don't want to lose as a brand.
Right.
And we're hoping that we can run shows in future where they are hybrid shows, where the first 1/3, maybe even the first half, if we have enough new recruits, is NWE. Second half will be maybe 3 to 4 narrative-based
Okay.
matches. And again, it comes down to how the qualification process works for us. But we hope that sort of satisfies both audiences, where those who want to see us grow as a startup with, very transparently, that's the NWE half. For those who love what we're doing nowadays with all the crazy videos and angles and crazy stuff, that's the Grapplemax half. And we hope that sort of makes everyone happy. But if
Yeah,
not, please let us know. Let us know. We're this crazy startup, right? We just tell us what you guys want to see. and then we will make it happen. Right?
Nice.
This is the benefit of running your own studio with minimum 12 shows a year. Right? If we make a mistake in a show, we can course correct. Right? But we're always going to be experimenting. But experiments only make sense if there's feedback. So tell us the feedback. And then we'll make it happen from there.
Okay. Cool. I mean, you guys have always been very open to feedback. Like, I mean, from personal experience, when I review the shows, you guys read the blog post. Like, it's really, really long, which I do not intend to go long, but it does. But you guys still read it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I appreciate that as someone that's new to the community and all that. So, and I think like you guys also respond to the comments on social media as well. So that's also another testament to what kind of community that you built here in Grapplemax. So guys, don't be afraid to just, drop a comment and say hi or whatever that you want to say on the videos, and whatever that you want to see Grapplemax maybe explore more of or go back to, maybe you can just say it.
Yeah, we're always keen to hear such feedback. And spread the word about this podcast, right? It's Lion City Wrestling Cult, right? So many people, right, like Nina here, are doing their best to start new angles, new ways to promote pro wrestling. But again, these things only catch fire if you help to spread the word, right? So we come from an 8-year background, right? Nina is relatively new to this, right? Help her spread the word, because this is incredible that there is now another podcast doing this with this particular focus. And we really appreciate, right, everyone coming up to be part of this. I think this is where we really want to see like Singapore wrestling scene move forward from here.
Have I ever told you like how or why I restarted the blog?
No, I don't think so.
Because I actually started writing like some years ago, I think before the pandemic, and it was just blogging, just a few matches, and then after that I stopped watching wrestling altogether.
Right.
Then pandemic happened and blah blah blah. And then last December, I started watching again. And the reason why was because I wanted to revive my blog. And the reason why I wanted to revive my blog was to help promote Singapore pro wrestling. And the reason for that was because I saw your post on Threads. And you were talking about, like this is for real. Like I was just like scrolling, and then I think I just downloaded Threads app. So I was trying to check out what the app is about, and then I saw your post about, like the Singapore pro wrestling scene, how your goals, basically I think it was like a New Year's resolution thing, right? And then I was like, oh man, the fact that you were still doing this, like I've kind of gone for a while not watching, and then I come back, I'm like, you're still hustling, you're still doing all this incredible work, still Grapplemax still alive, and I'm like, I want to go back to that, and I want to help you guys out.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and then I see like, people like SPW, and I see Ring of Rebirth at the time, and I was like, you know what, maybe there's something that I can help to contribute to the scene. And that's why I came back.
Wow.
Yeah, so I guess, it's like thanks to your post.
That's incredible.
Like, and also because I think maybe I was going through something, like work-wise.
Right.
So this gave me like, I guess, reignited my passion for like content creation, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do I even begin to respond to that? No, that's really touching. That's really awesome to know. I think that's why for me it's so hard to get out of this. Like when I went full time into this last year, it's a huge risk. It still is a huge risk because again, like we're not anywhere near making a huge amount of money. I'm not paying myself a salary yet. I'm still burning savings. But at the same time, again, I think the fact that we managed to still be here after so long, despite increasing our costs by so much, I think it shows that we are making some growth. And I think it's because like I feel that me being in this sort of shows that there's something worth fighting for sometimes, I guess. I can't recall when I made that threads post, I guess. But yeah, the idea was in fact, again, like, I mean, you can hear from this podcast too, right? Like, I think what I really care about the most is what's next, right? And look, I'm 42 this year, right? I'm not young anymore. Like, I'm not at the point where I'm chasing, like, I want to become like a wrestling superstar, right? I want to become like the Grapplemax open weight champ, right? It's to me, it's so uninteresting to me, right? It is, how do I now find new advocates, like new crazy people like myself? And I'm very lucky in Grapplemax where we have found these like 45, 50, 60 people who have begun to take on this mantle of being equally crazy about this, like myself and the original team have been.
Right.
And to hear stories like yourself who's like, oh, I came back because of this, I think that means a lot, because it means that it's working, right? And all these movements take a lot of initial grassroots people to get started. Right. And even now, like we're still very early on that curve. We're probably like 20% in. Right. But this is where that fire hopefully would start. Right. This is completely a movement, right? And like your whole like wrestling cult idea, right? The name, like, it's accurate where you want to sort of start, like maybe not like a cult, right, for SEO purposes, right? But you do want to create this behavior where people do want to stand up for this.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep talking about why I love to see people step up. Because I won't be here forever, right? And like what I love most is over the last few months is how much I actually have not had to do. I've been able to just sit back and keep the lights running or keep the engine running. But everyone is stepping up to do what they think is best for pro wrestling and Grapplemax in Singapore. And that's the best part. And I really hope to see more and more people like you step up to do things like that.
Right.
And that's the movement that will move wrestling forward.
Basically pass on to the next generation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you started out Grapplemax to be a full-time wrestler, but now
No, it wasn't. Let's be clear on the origin story. Okay, we have another like 2 minutes. Okay, origin story, right? So no, it was never to be a full-time wrestler.
Okay.
It was always been this goal, which is back then it was difficult for people to wrestle whenever they wanted. And it was difficult for people to understand what is the path to be a pro wrestler. And so the goal for us was, how do we create a place where you can wrestle a high volume at a high quality, but also with a focus on how do you get better as a person. So that's always been the case. It's always been the case of how do we build a place that has a very strong culture.
I see.
So that hasn't changed. It was never meant to be a full-time wrestler. Because there's no money in that, it doesn't make sense, right? It was always, how do we make it into a full-time culture?
Okay.
And that's the difference. Yeah.
So do you think you've achieved that goal?
Nah, I mean, like I said, I think we're 20% in, right? I think this goal will never stop.
Okay.
Right? We are like, what's a successful culture in Singapore now, right? Let's say, I don't know, pole dancing, skateboarding, different sort of activities here, right? Stand-up comedy, right? So many of these things started off decades ago, right? We just did a workshop with the swing station, right? The Lindy Hop workshop, right? And that's been around in Singapore for at least 10 plus years, right? All these take a very long time to build. And I think we are just scratching the surface of how deep we can get pro wrestling into Singapore culture.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just a start.
Cool. And I think that's an exciting thing too, right? It's something to look forward to. Like, what else can you do? Like if you've already done so much now, like that means it's still like a running track forward. Yeah. There's more to look forward to.
There's so much more to do. I always tell the team, like, I think we're not doing enough. And everyone's like, stop it, Greg, go home. Why are we still here at 11 p.m. at night talking about what to do next? And I'm just like, well, guys, but it's like, come on, it's like 5 more things. Let's do 5 more. I mean, even now, right, things like we're trying to get more partners on board, right? So we just signed up like the protein shake partner, Kettle Gourmet is our partner. And again, these are companies which previously would never consider pro wrestling as a partner to work with, right? And there's so many more things you want to do. And it's just, again, life is short, time is short, tendency is short. Like, how much can we squeeze out of this massive opportunity, right? We have a place which is completely made to grow pro wrestling, but this place is here for 2 years, right? Maybe a bit more, but maybe the most is 2 years, right? How much can we do in 2 years for pro wrestling in Singapore? This is it. Beyond this, I've got no idea, right? We will try, but this is it. This is our big swing.
Right.
So what's next, right? And I think that is really where we want to sort of maybe cover until.
All right. I mean, I think all good. So thank you so much, Greg, for being here on the podcast.
Right. Thanks for coming here to do it. It's always nice to welcome people in here, as always.
It's nice. I mean, having a studio just to do podcast recording is pretty cool.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And it's my first time doing this, using an equipment. So
yes.
cool.
This is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for hosting me.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Cool.
That's it.